Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Shawn. On this episode, we have more Cubs being Cubs and doing Cubs things. We have Bears finally hitting the preseason field, and we'll be talking Tournament of Trash. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski's Sports Talk Chicago. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So head on over to icehogs.com. Season hasn't started yet, but it will be in a few short weeks. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, jersey, shirt, and some season tickets, and tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how have you been?
I've been doing pretty well, and I know there's a lot of things we want to talk about on this show that I've been looking forward to talking on this show, so really ready to get into this one.
There's two things that I totally had a brain fart moment after we ended last episode, and I was like, damn it, I meant to talk about this and didn't bring it up. The first is we never discussed a certain familiar quarterback signing with the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly. Jay Cutler going to the Dolphins, and it was a move that I was like, when I first heard the rumor, I thought, well, I could see it because, A, he's going to play with Adam Gase again. We all saw what him and Gase did in 2015. It was pretty darn good. But at the same time, I thought he's committed to Fox, at least I think he was, and I don't know what kind of shape he was in at then, but then he got his money, he got his contract, and, all in all, I really hope he does a good job. I would really actually like to see him do a good job down there.
Yeah, I do too. I don't have any ill feelings towards him, and when I said emphatically that it was time for Jay Cutler to go, that was not a reflection on Jay per se. It was one of those things where it was just not a good fit, and continuing to go forward with Jay Cutler on the Chicago Bears was not doing either side justice or doing well, and it was time to just make a clean break, and it was the right opportunity for it. And I'm still shocked that he wasn't brought in by the Jets, because the Jets have absolute garbage there. So the only thing I can think of in New York is they're just tanking to get the first pick, because they're not even trying to bring in a quarterback.
No, and I think if they brought him in, it wouldn't solve their problems.
Would it solve their problems? No, but would it at least make them competitive?
Probably
more competitive this year. Yeah. So yeah, it was shocking that nobody contacted him that we know of. But when Tannehill went down, I think all eyes went to Jay Cutler, and I'm a little surprised he came out because, sure, it's $10 million, and you or I think there was very few things we wouldn't do for $10 million, but for a guy who's got a lot of money in the bank, I'm just surprised he came out of retirement for.
I thought, what kind of shape is he in? Will he be able to get back in there and quickly get into shape, even though he's missed the first 2 weeks of NFL training camp? Those things kind of come to mind, and I thought, is he really going to want to go out there and get his brains pounded in again and slammed on the ground? And, I guess my thought is $10 million sounds like a good gig. Probably thinking that he'll be able to go back to Fox whenever he wants to. And, I'm also thinking, look, I don't predict the Dolphins to really be a playoff team, but maybe he thinks they could be competitive enough where they may have a chance at the playoffs, and maybe you never know, try last minute to do something, make a push or some sort of challenge at a championship. Like I said, I don't think it's a championship caliber team per se, but maybe he sees some kind of optimism there. I don't know, but I give him a lot of credit for going back and wanting to work again as a quarterback. It'd be really, really tempting to just kind of want to move forward with the Fox gig if you were kind of lined in with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the easier decision. It's a tough decision to go back. And with the Dolphins, though, it's a comfortable situation because he's going right in with Adam Gase, who he's worked with, knows the system. And Ryan Tannehill brought this team to the playoffs last year. So it is a team that he's got to feel, well, if Ryan Tannehill did it, I can do it too.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think, I don't know how much this weighs or not, but you got to think Adam Gase does have, some decent influence on the decision, right? I mean, they loved working together.
Yeah, well, apparently is one fairly well-known sports journalist who has a blue check mark next to his name on Twitter, reported that he had insider knowledge that Jay turned down the deal at first, and that Adam Gase was going into hard sell mode. So apparently Adam Gase was the one, by reports I've read, that is the one that pushed this deal through and convinced Jay to sign.
Well, there you go then. I mean, hey, we saw what they did in 2015, and it really worked well, so you'd think that they'd work with Jay in his system, and Gase would be, he knows what Jay is, he knows what he could bring, Jay knows what Adam Gase likes to play, so, right there is just, I think, a match made in heaven, and no matter what kind of team he went to, because, look, there were a few rumored teams. I think the Texans were one, and then you mentioned the Jets, where at least this Dolphins team, the match is there because of the coaching.
Absolutely. And if Jay would have continued saying no and passed on the opportunity, from what I've read, his ownership actually told the GM and Adam Gase that he was greenlighting if they felt that Colin Kaepernick was the right quarterback, that they could sign him.
Yep, exactly. So, I don't want to cause, quarterback controversy here when it comes to Kaepernick and Jay Cutler, but I think if I were to take a chance on someone starting, I'd take Jay Cutler because I think he's got a better arm.
It's just depending on what you're going for is, I mean, Adam Gase has got to want to go with Cutler just because of, hold on a second, my dog's coughing up phlegm over there. If you're Adam Gase, you've got to be wanting Jay Cutler just because of the comfort level that you have with him, and he knows your system. He steps right in.
Like I said, it's a better fit.
Yeah. If I'm other teams, I probably would go with Kaepernick just because he's more mobile. He's much better at getting a first down with his feet. He still has a good arm, and he's younger, and he's going to be cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there are pros and cons to each one. For this scenario, I think Cutler fits better. I think if you were to look at some of the other teams that need quarterbacks, I think Kaepernick would be better fit as a Jets guy because, I mean, really, do they have much of a passing offense on that team? They got some solid running backs, and, Colin Kaepernick is good with his legs, so you think that'd be a better fit.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets they're a bad team. They're bad.
Yeah, you might as well get someone. I mean, who do they even have at quarterback? I just talked about them the other day on another show, and I can't even remember who their quarterback is right now.
You know what? I read this the other day, and I completely forgot who it's Christian Hackenberg.
Right.
Let's see. Josh McCown and Bryce Petty.
Yeah, that's right.
That is a bad quarterback batch there.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's not good.
No, not at all. So the Jets, you're not going to convince me with them going in with those three quarterbacks when, regardless of thoughts around them, is there's legitimate guys they could have put in there that would have beat out all three of those in Kaepernick and Cutler, and they left both of them on the sidelines. That just tells me they're tanking, and you're not going to convince me otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the team really doesn't have anything. They're not going to get over 4 wins, that's for sure. They play in a division with the Patriots. They might as well go for that top pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, between the Patriots and the Dolphins, that's 0-4 right there.
Yeah, and then, the Bills are kind of in a weird spot too. I kind of see them as in the process of a retool than a full rebuild, but they still have more talent than the Jets, and I think the Bills will beat them at least once.
Yeah, the Jets are deep doo-doo. But the other thing I wanted to talk about that we didn't bring up is our very own Rosemont is getting a minor league baseball team.
Yeah, and my parents were talking about that the other day because there was the Bandits game there. My parents went to a Bandits game and they saw them building the park pretty much right next to the Bandits park, so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I pass by it every day on 294 on my way to work, and I was just like, man, I wonder what they're building there. And lo and behold, there we go. It's the baseball stadium for the Chicago Hot Dogs. I'm excited. I love going to Cubs games, but it's I can't just take my kid because she doesn't have the attention span for it, and
Right.
and it's way too expensive to bring a kid that isn't like all in on it.
Right.
And I live fairly close to Wrigley Field. I mean, I'm like 5 miles from the stadium, so it's not like it's that far. But Rosemont, I can be there in it's like 3 miles, but it's 3 miles with no traffic. I can be there in under 10 minutes to that stadium, and I'm sure that I don't have to worry about parking because I'm sure they're building a parking lot or a garage, and I'm sure those tickets are going to be pretty inexpensive. So, I was actually talking to my wife about getting season tickets.
Yeah, and they're are they independent ball?
I believe they are right now, but I'm sure that Rosemont, because I believe Rosemont might be the co-owners with Hot Dogs. I mean, not Hot Dogs, Wiener Circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they're going to push for eventually to get us affiliated with somebody.
For sure. And it's funny because I love minor league baseball and I love the Kane County Cougars. I love going to those games so much, but it is kind of a trek. It's not very close to us. So, and like I've said before, we go to Chicago Wolves games all the time. That's a very easy drive from here. It maybe takes us 10, 15 minutes at most. So having two like minor league teams, and then you think about it, you also have the Bandits. I've yet to go to a game, and I want to, but they're building more and more kind of these other league sports around here, and it's a lot of fun too because you can enjoy a quality sporting event, good franchises that are inexpensive and close. Because as much as I love going to Cubs games more than anything, it's far. It costs you an arm and a leg, and you got to kind of make a whole day or night of it because it's going to take a while to get there and get back.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, for me, usually I just take an Uber the whole way because I'm like 5 miles, so it's not that bad. But to get in and out of the stadium it takes a long time, and then to get to somewhere where an Uber driver can find you because there's just hordes of people pouring out. I end up walking like a mile, then catching an Uber, and it's just like you said, it is. I love going, but it's something you can't just pop in and pop out like you can with a minor league game. Is I can just stop on my way home and meet my wife because it's on my way home. It's actually where traffic starts hitting for me, and my wife can just meet me there. It's like a halfway point, and we go to the game, and if the fifth inning the kid gets tired or hungry, we can just go home because it's cheap.
Right, exactly. I mean, my dad and I, we're actually going to the Cubs game this Friday against the the Toronto Blue Jays. And, we've had to plan this for a while. We plan out everything. We take the Rockwell and Irving Express. Have you ever used that before?
I know of it, but I've never lived anywhere where it
Right.
it worked out.
It's so great because it costs you nothing. You park the car in the lot, you get on the bus, and there's a never-ending loop of buses. The only thing is, it might take a while to get out after the game. You might be waiting for a bus for a while, but I'll tell you, it's worth waiting for a bus than paying $45 for parking.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I'm not going to announce it on the air because they're my secret spots, but I've got a couple of secret spots that I'm usually pretty lucky with. They're a little bit of a walk. They're like a 10-minute walk from the stadium, but it's free parking, and and then I walk in, and then when I can be out and miss all the congestion right around the stadium. But I've been doing that for a few years now, and it's worked probably 95% of the time.
Hey, it's good to have those, and we used to have our special spot for the longest time as a family. My uncle lived on Eddy Street, right on, right in Wrigleyville there. It's only like 2 blocks from the park. We'd park in his garage, we didn't have to pay anything. Just parked in his garage, walked over. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, and one of the guys who lives on that alley, he actually opens up all the garages in that alley and, charges for parking. We did it with him for a while, but the prices just started getting too expensive. So we're like, yeah, we just can't do this anymore. So that's when we did this shuttle thing, and it's worked pretty well since, but nothing will ever beat having our, my late uncle's garage, because that was as convenient as you could get.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I used to be able to get parking passes, street parking, where the you need the permits to park, and I used to be able to get the temporary permits, and I would use those, but that resource dried up.
Right.
I had a friend who lived there, so that person is no longer living there, so that dried up. But that was nice too, because you could park like 2 blocks away, and you were fine.
Okay, so speaking of Wrigleyville, well, there are 2 things I want to bring up with you. We'll start with Wrigleyville. Did you hear about the protests for the Taco Bell that they're tearing down?
Yeah, and it's so stupid. It's as dumb as when the people throw a temper tantrum about tearing down the stupid McDonald's.
Yep. And what I always say is, the McDonald's is going to be in the hotel. And I guarantee you, it is going to be 25 million times nicer than the one that was there.
Yeah, that was a. I mean, I don't eat McDonald's, but that was a garbage McDonald's.
Oh, it was terrible. I love McDonald's, and I think it was awful.
Yeah, I mean, and that Taco Bell is no better. Like, you could go a mile and go to 8 other Taco Bells that are better. I don't understand.
Stabbed people in that Taco Bell. Drunk people have gotten into violent fights in that Taco Bell.
Yeah, that Taco Bell is not anywhere I want to go after like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Even during game days, I never wanted to step foot in there. And I see the artist renderings of what they're building there. Beautiful, beautiful multi-level complex of shops, stores, and whatnot. And, there are a few spots in Wrigleyville that they've torn down that I'm like, I'll kind of miss. Mainly what it was, have you ever been to Goose Island there? The big Goose Island bar?
Yeah, my friend's wife used to be the manager there, so I used to go there regularly, yeah.
Loved it there. I thought they had great food. I thought they had a great drink selection. I know they leveled it, so I was a little bummed about that, but seeing what the Ricketts are going to do with that whole neighborhood, I'm like, this is going to be so much better. The buildings are going to be so much nicer, and I guess the only thing that I can see people being somewhat upset about is tearing down the 7-Eleven, not because it was a special 7-Eleven, but it is kind of nice to have a convenience store on a game day like that. Sometimes you need to buy sunscreen, sometimes you need to buy water or drinks, or sometimes you just have to buy stuff from a convenience store. So that I could see people being kind of upset about, but no one's really expressed any anger over that. It's mainly over this McDonald's and Taco Bell, something you could find probably within a few blocks and places that were pretty sketchy and pretty gross.
Yeah, I totally agree about the 7-Eleven because that provides something that, sunscreen or, if you need anything previous or prior to the game, that's a place to get it. But nobody's like, oh man, I need some diarrhea. Let me go to Taco Bell before this game. That just doesn't happen. And I guarantee the people that are upset probably haven't been in that Taco Bell in 5+ years.
Right, and it's funny. Ever since the McDonald's has been gone, no one's been talking about how they miss the McDonald's. People were upset when they knew it was being torn down, and once it was gone, no one's talked about it, and no one probably ever will because there'll be the McDonald's when the hotel opens, and probably the same thing with the Taco Bell. I know it's where some people parked, but man, the parking there got really, really expensive. So now I could see people being upset if they tore down Murphy's or the Cubby Bears. I mean, frankly, both those places are dumps, but you know what? They're part of Wrigleyville. They'll always be part of Wrigleyville, and they are unique. Whether you like it or not, they are unique. So that I could understand, but chain restaurants like that are of the lowest quality, and I'm not saying like knocking McDonald's or Taco Bell. I'm saying that they're the lowest quality of McDonald's because there are some really nice McDonald's restaurants. The one in Wrigleyville was not of the highest quality. Same with the Taco Bell. I've seen better Taco Bells. So once it's gone, it's going to be a non-story.
And it would be one thing if they were tearing it down and putting some like a trailer park there or something that was just ugly, but everything they've built so far has been top notch. So why would you think it's going to be any different? They're showing you what they're building. They're showing you what they're doing, and it's much better than what is there. So let them revitalize things.
And think about, have you been to the Cubs park yet?
Yeah.
Isn't it just awesome? Isn't it just flat awesome?
It is a really cool idea, and they did a really great job.
Yeah, I mean, and I went there before they opened the restaurants. The restaurants weren't open yet on the second level. So, when we go Friday, I'm hoping to check those out now. Like, I love the place, and I haven't even seen all of it yet. So, I think that addition was one of the best additions to Wrigley Field. And, I mean, let's face it, that parking lot was pretty ugly next to it all those years. It was blech.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a player parking lot, so you just sat there and you're like, oh, there's Mark G and Greco. Okay, all right, I'm going to go. There's the head groundskeeper. All right, I'm going to go.
Whoop-de-doo. And there was old Yum Yum Donuts, but I wasn't really old enough to experience that. I'm sure you have.
Yeah, and you're not missing anything. But it's not like, the United Center where they're like, oh, we're going to do renovations and we're going to move the Michael Jordan statue inside so you can't see it except on event day. They're making it better. So I just don't understand people's just anger.
Yeah, and some people, I get there's attachment to nostalgia. Yeah, I get very attached to things over nostalgic reasons too, but the Taco Bell or McDonald's, never stepped into those places. Actually, no, I've been in the McDonald's once and it was gross, so never went in there again. So won't miss those. I get that the construction may be kind of an inconvenience during game days, but you know what? Everyone's so happy now that they've won and they're doing all these updates. I don't really think it should matter too much. And just think of the awesomeness that's going to be there in a few years when it's all built up.
True story. Gross story, but true story.
Oh, boy.
I used to work, there was a record store that was attached to the Metro right down the street, and I worked there for a couple of years. And one day I was on my way home, and I was like, I'm just starving, and I just need to grab something quick. So I just got some French fries from McDonald's, and when I was walking out the door, I was like, man, something smells really bad. And I look over, and there was a homeless person pooping in the corner of like the street-facing seats. Was pooping on the floor.
Yeah, that I've heard stories of that too in that place. That's it's sad to say I'm not surprised by that. It was not a good place to be in.
Yeah, so people that are nostalgic. I mean, if you're nostalgic about stuff, whatever, but if you're going to be outright upset to the point where you're going to protest about a Taco Bell or a McDonald's, then you should count your blessings that your life is that awesome that tearing down a crappy McDonald's to put something better is the worst thing that happens in your life.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I just laugh so much thinking of how many just completely wasted people I've seen stumble in there, and people like I've seen fights in that place. Like I'll see some guys shoving here or there. I never stepped inside, but you could see through the windows, and I've seen just people shouting and shoving in there, and it's like, ugh, why would you want to go in there? So, I get that Taco Bell and McDonald's are cheap options if you want food, but like I said, there are other locations nearby, and the McDonald's will be back in the hotel. So, think about how awesome it's going to be when it's in that beautiful hotel and how it's going to be nice and kept up. It'll be so much better.
Yeah. So people need to stop. Just stop and get a grip.
Exactly. The other quick thing I wanted to bring up, you were talking about Rosemont. Did you hear the Chicago Sky are moving into the city?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, next year they're moving to the new stadium for DePaul. They're going to share that stadium with DePaul now. And one of my good friends is a Sky season ticket holder, and he said a lot of his fellow season ticket holders out here in the suburbs, they're not renewing tickets, and he's not even sure if he's going to renew his tickets.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things is, that seems like a more suburban thing than a city thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm a DePaul alumni. Like I went to DePaul, graduated, loved DePaul, but I still don't understand the point of that new stadium. It's not like it's gonna bring that much closer to or easier to get to than Rosemont for the students that go there. So they're gonna have to commute to get to their team stadium. Like,
right.
The thing is you want to put butts in the seat is, I realize it's really hard to put something in Lincoln Park, but I mean, there's a big empty spot where the old Children's Memorial Hospital is. I mean, there's places they can go and things they can do, and to put a stadium in that's right there, that's going to help put butts in the seats and bring potential recruits to come there. But the Sky thing, I don't understand. Like that seems like Rosemont seems just like a really great place for that.
It's kind of the same thing with like the Chicago Wolves. It's a perfect suburban thing. It gives the people in the suburbs, a nice cheap option of sports to go to, and moving them to the city, like I said, it's caused a lot of the season ticket holders to not renew, and it just, I don't know. So I guess we'll just see how that goes. Really, it's kind of a surprising move, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been to one game. That was early on. I haven't been in a while. But I mean, I would imagine the demographic they're trying to go for is bringing in. I mean, they want to bring everybody in, but the demographic they probably want to get to is families with daughters that are into sports, and families tend to find it
exactly.
easier to go to the
They're going to really try to appeal to the youth. So, yeah, I guess there was a big meeting about it, and they just made it official. So, like I said, this is all through my one buddy who's a Sky season ticket holder. There was also an article in the Tribune about it. It's like one sports team leaves Rosemont and another one is coming in.
Yeah, I mean, Rosemont really is pushing for it because they have so much money from all the corporate things there, and the mall and the convention center, and the population is only like 2,000 people, so they have a ton of money, and they don't have a large population of people to to spend it on. So they have all of these coffers of money to be able to do land to be able to do these things, like offer the Cubs 25 free acres to build a stadium and move there. Instead, they'll just put their own baseball team.
They had basketball, and they had
hockey,
arena football too.
Baseball and softball, and they had basketball. Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised if they don't try to,
sure. I could see it.
Eventually draw in the
they play
City
it
to play there instead of
I've actually never been there.
Yeah, where they play like Hoffman Estates or something. I don't even know. The Sears Center. That's it's. I mean, I've passed by. It's pretty far.
No, you know what's funny? Like,
So,
it's
I
the
wouldn't be
perfect
surprised
minor
if they
league
try to lure
sports
them in.
community, but I think it'd be an epic, just pain in the
so-
ass disaster if the Cubs were in Rosemont. I really do.
Part of me would have loved it. Just stick it to Tom Tunney,
doubt.
the alderman there, and stick it to the mayor, because they've both been such a pain in the ass to the Cubs. But and it would have been nice because they could have just started fresh with a brand new building and not have to worry about renovation, and would no inconvenience because it could just been built, and they kept playing in Wrigley until it was built, and then built the restaurants how they wanted. Rosemont was going to build, or they were going to run a shuttle bus or a trolley or something to get people from the Blue Line there. They offered to pay for that and build restaurants and hotels, and it all would have been just exactly how the Cubs wanted it. And what? My God, my dog. It would have just been. It would have been neat to see
and
how
that
they
is
did it, and
something
there
you
would've been
could
a
definitely
parking
see
lot
people
and
being
all
upset over
but
is that.
it
Plus, I
would've
just
lost a lot of the
imagining
nostalgia
Cubs
of
traffic
being
combined
in
with
Louisville.
airport traffic, to me, that just it would seem like a complete disaster at times. I don't know.
We've got a couple topics to talk about. We've got the Tournament of Trash, which is our friends that do podcast Bawl, BAWL. They have this thing called Tournament of Trash, which is I'll explain it a little more when we get to it. But we have that. We have the Bears preseason game, and we have Cubs. All right, so Tournament of Trash. So they have so the guys from Ball do two podcasts. They do Ball, which is all the sports, and they do Ball on Bulls. And they do this thing. It's their third annual Tournament of Trash. And this one is Chicago Bulls' worst front office decisions. It is they've got 4 regions. So it's set up like the NCAA tournament. There's the whack region, the sad region, the garbage region, and the pathetic region. And yeah, and the winner receives the Retire Norm Van Leer's jersey trophy. And it is like, so they haven't just picked any of the winners yet, but they've bracketed them and tiered them. But I was reading through this the other day when they posted it, and I was like, I can't believe all of these awful front office decisions that the Bulls have made. So I'll quickly go through them, and we could just laugh and joke about them a little bit here. In the WAC region, the number 1 seed is trading Aldrich for Tyrus Thomas, going up against the 8th seed of not celebrating Ben Gordon. Number 4, not getting Kobe Bryant versus number 5, firing Ray Clay. Number 2 seed, putting the Jordan statue indoors versus the 7 seed, St. Patrick's Day jerseys. Yes. The 3 seed in that region is 2 Kurt Heinrich montages, and versus the 6 seed, signing John Starks. We go to the sad region. The number 1 seed in the sad region is hiring Tim Floyd. And that goes up against the 8th seed, which is signing Rondo. The 4 seed going up against the 5 seed is signing Robinson versus signing Ben Wallace. 2 seed firing Tibbs versus trading Jimmy Butler. And drafting Marcus Teague versus drafting Eddie Curry. Then the garbage region is number 1 seed not firing Garpax versus drafting Dickie Simpkins. Pushing out Phil Jackson versus passing on Dennis Smith Jr. Then it's hiring Gar Foreman versus hiring Vinny Del Negro. And then the last first round matchup in that bracket is passing on Draymond Green versus changing half court logo. And then the final region is trading up for Doug McDermott versus hiring Scott Skiles. This is my favorite first round matchup. When they sent Benny the Bull to try to recruit Tracy McGrady versus firing Ron Adams. Oh, that is like such a Bulls thing to do. Let's send Benny the Bull to try to recruit this free agent that we really want. Oh, that is such a Bulls thing to do. I'm gonna text them and just be like, if that doesn't win all like the whole tournament, I'm boycotting. And then they have signing Kirk Heinrich 3 times versus not hosting the All-Star game. And the final first round matchup is paying Dwayne Wade $50 million versus signing Rusty LaRue. I read these and I was like, is this a storied franchise that has fallen on hard times, or is this a pathetic franchise that got bailed out by having Michael Jordan? It is a bad organization, and I love the Bulls, but they make it so hard to be a fan because just the impossibly dumb things they continually do. So this week we had really hoped that there would be a sweep of the Giants and they could take 2 or 3 from Arizona. We got the 2 or 3 from Arizona, but it was far from a sweep against the Giants. Yeah, I mean, that first game, I really thought they were going to break that open and really, open a can of whoop ass and hopefully lead to a sweep of that Giants team. But, I mean, Arrieta pitched really well. Didn't walk anybody, only gave up 2 earned runs in 6 1/3. But they were 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position and left 9 guys on base. This team, too many strikeouts, and they're not making good contact, and they're not seeing enough pitches. What we saw different from last year to this year is just the patience at the plate. Look how few walks they're getting. I mean, I know teams are being more aggressive with them and throwing it more in the strike zone, but the Cubs players they're swinging outside of the zone. Yeah, and so this series, or that Giants series, was just really frustrating because it's a team that's just not a good team. I think they have the 3rd worst record in baseball. They're a really bad team, and I know you're getting Bumgarner back, and he's starting to look like Madison Bumgarner, but it's a team that you should just absolutely be dominating, and not getting on base, swinging everything outside the zone, not drawing the walks, not making good contact. It's just the opposite of the things they did last year.
Right, and they're also just, seems like in some games, like that last game against the Giants, I don't know if you saw it, I got home during the day and I saw the 8th inning when the Giants took the lead. It was literally a slow infield single, then it was the craziest hang time bloop you'd ever see, and then another incredibly slow chopper that somehow found a hole. And it seems like when you could just tell when things aren't going right, when, crazy stuff like that happens. And then in the next inning, a couple hit it hard right at someone. So, part of it was just bad baseball luck. And unfortunately that happens, but it seems like it's been happening a lot more this year.
Yeah, so They end up losing 2 of 3 to the Giants. That second game was just bad. Hendricks came out and pitched pretty darn well.
Yes, he did.
But the Cubs only drew 1 walk, and 100% of their runs were scored on home runs.
Yeah, it was Albert Almora taking him deep.
Yeah. And then that third game, it was that was the third game.
That was the third game, yeah.
Sorry. The middle game, and that was the one where the third game was where Wilson Contreras got hurt with a hamstring injury. And have we gotten an official timetable yet, or is it still speculation?
It's in the 4 to 6 weeks, but you know what? With these hamstring injuries, they say to always kind of expect the longer than the shorter. So when they say 4 to 6 weeks, it's probably more likely 6 weeks to 4 weeks. So that's a little over a month.
That's bad.
I know, and he was our number one hitter this second half.
Yeah, absolutely. But that second game was another one where, I want to go back and sort of look at this, but when the Cubs start off in the hole after the first inning, they're not coming back that well, and there's so many games where they start off with being in the hole after the first inning, and that second game was another one. It was 3-0 after the first inning.
Yeah, and there were 2 errors, and then Buster Posey hit the home run just barely out, and people are freaking out over Quintana, and it's like, don't freak out over Quintana. It's, some of it was bad defense, and yeah, lately he's had some first inning yips, but he still gives you a quality start every time. But yeah, like you said, when they get into the hole, it's been kind of hard for them to fight back. It seems like the theme this year, not this year, because they came back from a lot of deficits early on the season, but the early hole, when they're trying to play catch up the past month or so, they just get way too aggressive and things just don't work right.
Yeah, it's been a really frustrating series. You lose a really key player, which makes that Alex Avila trade that much more important. But you also see some of the continued struggles where you win that first game and then you come back and lose the next 2, and you're not drawing walks. In that second game, they drew 2 walks. In the third game, they drew 1 walk. You can't be the Cubs and strike out that many times and not be drawing walks. You've got to get on base somehow.
Yeah, they weren't getting on base, not some good at-bats. Bumgarner was in complete control of that. Some Babbitt misfortunes going against them. That was a frustrating game. I was a bit more upset of losing the tie block the night before because they had plenty of chances to score and they couldn't, and then they just kind of gave it away in the end, where that was a game they absolutely should have won matchup-wise, and you think to yourself, well, if they could have won that game, then you lose a game against Bumgarner. It's like, well, what can you do? The best scenario for me could have been, maybe not the very best, but a good scenario would have been they won the first 2 and Contreras doesn't get hurt in the third game, even if they lose. If that happens, then there's really not much of a problem, but the way they lost that second game and the third game just wasn't good.
Yeah, if they would have come out and won that second game and Contreras wouldn't have got hurt, we would be completely talking about this week at a different level.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, we both kind of talked about this, but the Cardinals are nipping right on the Cubs' heels.
And look, you knew that was going to happen. You knew that as bad as this Cardinals team has looked all year, you knew that they'd suddenly have this spark or some voodoo crap with this cat happening, and then they're off to the races again all of a sudden. What I'm hoping is that it's just a hot streak and they were due for one, and they're just kind of playing over their skill level right now, and they eventually fade away. And you could say that about a lot of teams, but with the St. Louis Cardinals, you can never count them out.
Yeah, and they, up until today, they'd been on an 8-game winning streak, and they caught up a lot of games because the Cubs were like 3-7 in their last 10. So they caught up a number of games, and going into today, they weren't still in second, but by a fraction of a percentage point.
Right, yeah, because because of the games in hand and whatnot. Wasn't that it?
Yeah, they're 2 games. They have played 2 more games than the Cubs, and they're 1-1 in those games. So the
Right.
Cubs, were a fraction of a percent better, but they were essentially tied in the standings.
And I mean, it's like their offense all of a sudden just exploded.
Yeah, it's you don't like to see that if you're a Cubs fan. But
No.
the Cubs got the win today, with nice win, and the Cardinals lost. So they're back to being 1 ahead, but the Cardinals have leapfrogged the Brewers, and I think the Brewers are done. I think that it's just going to be a battle between the Cubs and the Cardinals now.
I want to say the Brewers are done. I really do, but every time I've said that this year, they've gone on like a 5-game win streak. So I don't know. I mean, logistically, I would say they're done, but I don't know for sure. You know, they've won 2 in a row now, and you know they can squeak off a few more wins here and still kind of stay in it. But I do think you're right. The primary battle towards the end is going to be between the Cardinals and the Cubs.
Yeah, I'm quickly looking at the Cardinals, seeing
I think they go to Boston next.
they do. But it's only a 2-game series.
Right. The Cubs have a lot of 4-game series to end the season. They got a good number of them.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about 4-game series. They're tough. Because even if you do well, it seems like you just go 2-2.
Right. It also kind of depends on who you're playing, because like we said in our last show, we have those 2 4-game series towards the ends with the Brewers and the Cardinals, and that can be the division right there. They could lose or win a division right there.
Yeah, pretty much. It's going to be huge. And I just looked. The Cardinals have to play the Brewers two more series, a 2-game series and a 3-game series. They finished the season with the Brewers in St. Louis. So there's not that many games left against the Brewers. I was hoping they'd play like 22 more games against each other, so it would just be them, knocking each other out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I looked. It was in the Chicago Tribune this morning, and they had the matchups for the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Brewers, and don't forget, the Pirates aren't out of it either. So you got to keep an eye on them. I will say that even though I'm not counting the Pirates out, the reason I don't worry about them quite as much, I just don't think their pitching is very good as a whole.
No, they don't have the best of pitching, and they have, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, they have the toughest of the schedule.
Yeah.
Of the 4 teams, because they've got but they do have a lot of division games left. They play the Cubs several times. They play the Brewers. They play the Cardinals. So I mean, if they play well, they could catch it. Those are, great series to catch up on people. But also they've got to leapfrog 3 other teams to get back into first. They got to go over the Brewers. They got to go over the Cardinals. And they got to go over the Cubs. And that's just hard in baseball to do, because even if you are face to face, head to head against one of the teams ahead of you, is you may leapfrog 1, but then you still have 2 more that you're trying to leapfrog. It gets to be an exhausting exercise.
Absolutely. And here's the thing: if the Pirates even just play mediocre down the stretch against these division teams, it's like, well, if you're losing as much as you win, that's not going to do it. So they definitely have a tough schedule. I can't count them out because I know they do have some talent in that lineup, but I'd put my chances lower for them against, say, the Cardinals. So it's going to be quite a battle, and it's kind of cool to see a division race, a close one. I know it's more stressful, but it does make things interesting, and hopefully it ends in our favor, because they got to take advantage of this schedule the next week or so. They absolutely have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, they really do. It just makes you wonder how much more of an interesting race it would be if the Pirates hadn't started off so bad at the beginning of the season.
Right,
Or
exactly.
the Cardinals, for that matter.
Yeah, any of them really. Did you see my my tweet last night about the schedule by any chance?
I did not.
Yeah, and I was just tweeting the opponents the next I'm trying to find it now. It's the series opponents the next few weeks or so. Here it is. So Reds, Jays, Reds, Phillies, Pirates, Braves. You got to take advantage of that.
Oh yeah, you've got to be. There are several series in there that you need to sweep.
You need to sweep the Phillies. That's an absolute. You must sweep the Phillies.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not facing Marcus Stroman, you should be sweeping the Blue Jays too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen because my dad and I are going to be there. So, I don't know.
Damn you.
Yeah, I know. The Reds, that 4-game series at Wrigley, I say take 3 of 4. No matter who you're playing, a 4-game sweep is always very hard. I could see the Reds squeaking one out, but if they play really good baseball and take 3 of 4, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, would love to see a 4-game sweep. I mean, last year we saw a 4-game sweep against the Nationals really just propel the Cubs.
Same with 2015. Remember against the Giants?
Yeah. So it was. It's like they're just great confidence boosters because it's winning a 4-game series and sweeping it is really hard.
Right, and if they don't even win that series against the Reds, that could really hurt you. So, I think that there's a lot on the line there, but you gotta play consistent baseball against these teams because it's not going to get any easier at the end.
Yeah, it's not going to get easier. The stress is gonna. If you are struggling now in the middle of October, come September, you're gonna really be pressing. And that's bad. You have to be playing your best ball come September or October.
Exactly. And what makes me kind of, how do I say it? There's two sides of me. The calm part of me says, I know this is a really good team and they know they just won the World Series and they probably have, if they could come back from a 3-1 deficit, then I think they can handle the pressure. But the other part of me says, we've heard from so many defending world champ teams that down this stretch, they run out of gas, they get tired. I mean, look at the 2006 White Sox. You remember towards the end, they just kind of ran out of gas, and that's one thing you always got to kind of worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, in the series against Diamondbacks, it was great to go to the home park of one of the best teams in baseball and take 2 of 3. That's the good news But that middle game that they lost, you look at that and your ace gets the loss in Leicester, and Zobrist 0 for 5, Almora 0 for 3, Happ 0 for 3, Schwarber 0 for 4.
Golden sombrero.
Yeah, you only drew 2 walks. You were 2 of 9 with runners in scoring position. You left 11 guys on base.
Rizzo hit a drive that missed being a grand slam by 5 feet?
And, Leicester pitched fairly well. They just had that giant sixth inning that really sealed the doom for the Cubs.
And you can't just blame that on Leicester because Baez threw that ball over Avila's head. That was not good.
Yeah, Arrieta's pitching better, which is a good thing. Lackey's been pretty good for the most part.
He's what you want out of a fifth starter.
Yeah. Hendricks is starting to pitch well. Lester is not pitching terribly, but he is just getting some terrible luck and having some, a rough inning here and there. And Quintana, you could take away, if he could start in the second inning, we'd be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
First innings that have been rough for him.
Yeah, exactly, because he's been getting really hit hard in the first inning, and then he kind of settles in, and, hopefully he just kind of wiggles out of that, and I think he will, so I'm not too worried about him.
The Cubs, The good news, I mean, it's bad that Contreras is out, but it's good that it's not like a season-ending injury. But Bryant is starting to heat up, and the starting pitching is looking better. So those are positive takeaways of the last couple weeks.
What a series he had in Arizona. Chris Bryant, that was incredible.
Oh yeah, I mean he looked like the MVP.
And he wasn't just trying to crush every pitch; he was just dumping them there where they weren't. And then he finally crushed one in his final at bat. So it was perfect.
Yeah, I mean their MVP candidate came to our park and crushed our pitchers, and our MVP candidate went to their park and looked great. So a little turnabout.
It was really great this series. They really neutralized Paul Goldschmidt when it mattered. Yeah, he hit a meaningless solo home run, but the game was already 7-1. When the game was much closer, they struck him out and got him to ground into a double play. They got him to ground into a double play early in game 1. So they really neutralized that bat this time around. He did hit 2 home runs in the series, but none of them really did any big damage like at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for is minimize it. Like home runs aren't bad. So like last year, Kyle Hendricks gave up a decent number of home runs, but if you look, they were usually solo shots, and you can live with a solo shot.
Especially if you were like Wade Davis in the 9th, where just trying to get him over, it's like, don't walk anyone, make him hit it. You're up by 6, and there's 2 outs to go. So, like you said, that's one thing. So, it's better than doing a bunch of other things like walking the whole world.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the last thing with the Cubs I want to mention is we got the probables for this week.
Okay.
So tomorrow is going to be Asher Wojciechowski for the Reds versus Quintana. Hopefully Quintana can get right his ship against the minor league squad.
Well, I will say this: the Reds still do have a pretty good lineup. Their pitching isn't good, but their lineup is still pretty good when you think about it.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they've got some guys. They've got a couple guys in the middle of the order that can really,
Duvall is red hot right now. Joey Votto is still Joey Votto. The most annoying hitter in the world, Billy Hamilton. So,
yeah, I mean, the good thing is Asher Wojciechowski, however you pronounce that, he's got a 4.23 ERA this season, so nothing fantastic there. Game 2 is going to be Kyle Hendricks versus Luis Castillo.
Luis Castillo?
Castillo has...
There's another Luis
Yes.
Castillo?
Apparently.
How about that?
And he's 2-5 with a 3.73 ERA, but he's actually got a pretty nice ERA over his last 3 starts, but still you got to look at that as good for the Cubs. Game 3 is going to be John Lackey versus Homer Bailey.
Homer Bailey has been beyond trash this year. I just hope the Cubs don't completely flub against him.
He's got over an 8 ERA over his.
If the Cubs do
regular
not hit
season,
him,
and
I will be mad.
he's not a good pitcher. And then they wrap the series up with Johnny Lester versus Scott Feldman.
Scott Feldman owned us in his last time out, so hopefully that changes.
Yeah, but the good thing is his over his last 3 starts, his ERA is 10.8.
Yeah, well, let's hope the Cubs actually take advantage of that. We have seen the Cubs kind of flub against those bad pitchers, so hope for the best. They don't have Bronson Arroyo anymore, do they? Because he was pitching with them this season, and he was doing pretty bad.
Yeah, he was leading the league in home runs allowed.
Oh, he's on the disabled list.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So, yeah, he still is playing on the Reds. He's still on the Reds roster, so... but he's bad. If you could get Homer Bailey and Bronson Arroyo back to back, those are called
Right.
get right games.
Yeah, I mean, he's 40 years old. He can't even hit over 84 anymore on the gun. And, velocity isn't always everything, but you got to have good movement and sick location if you want to make that work. And, that hasn't worked out well in his case. But I think it's time for Mr. Arroyo to retire. He's had some nice seasons in his career, but he's 40 now and not good.
Yeah, not good at all. So, man, I don't even know how long his contract is, but if it's up after this year, I can't see him
He
ever
didn't
getting
pitch
another one.
in 16 or 15 at all. Yeah, because
Really?
I don't know. I don't know if he was injured or something, but he was with Cincinnati from 2006 to 2013. Then he went to Arizona in 2014. Nothing in 15, nothing in 16. Came back this year in 2017. And yeah, we know the story there. I'm going to look at his, let's see. Okay, he was granted free agency in 2015 after being traded. He was traded to the Atlanta Braves from the Diamondbacks. He was then part of a 3-team deal in July of 2015, but he never played. He was then granted free agency in November of 2015. He signed with the Nationals in January and was released in October, but he didn't play.
That's so
Yeah,
weird.
I don't. That is weird. Is there a? I'm gonna look at his ESPN numbers and see. Yeah, he didn't pitch in 15 or 16. Not at all. I'm gonna look at his minor league, see if he was in the minors. I don't know if he was recovering. All it says is that he pitched. He pitched in the Nationals minor league. RK, is that recreational? Gulf Coast League. Sorry, it was the Gulf Coast League, and
Was he injured and
he
recovering?
only pitched 9.2 innings. I guess he was injured. That's my guess. That's so because I just kind of assumed he retired, and then all of a sudden he was back.
He's a strange one.
Huge leg kick. I don't know how he did that for so many years.
I don't know. It looks like he's doing some yoga or something up there. So should we move on to the last topic?
All right,
the
let's
Chicago
do it.
Bears. So, Chicago Bears. We had our first preseason game Thursday night. So we don't play again until a week from yesterday. So this coming Saturday, and it started off really bad, about as bad as you could expect without a catastrophic injury. But we found ourselves right back in the thick of things, and come the end of the game, I think really turned around Bears fans.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a whole new level of optimism, and that leads to some interesting thoughts by people. But you know what? For the first time in a long time, we had legit excitement about the future in a young player.
Yeah, so I was trying to talk to somebody about Mitch Trubisky. They were saying, well, we've seen Bears quarterbacks look good in preseason before, put up good numbers in preseason, and then they flame out and aren't good in the regular season. And I was trying to say that if you just look at the pure numbers, then they put up good numbers. But if you watch some of these other quarterbacks, like David Fales has played well in preseason, and you've seen some other guys play well in preseason, but it was they were put up good numbers, but it didn't look as good. It didn't look as fluid. And when Mitch Trubisky was out there, he looked like a professional quarterback. He looked like he knew what he was doing. And there was plenty of room being nitpicking, but there was room for improvement. And if he does those mild improvements, you're going to see I think, a really, really competent quarterback.
Well, what we saw from Mitch Trubisky is you can preach about how he's against third stringers all you want, but what we saw was raw talent from this guy. We saw raw athleticism. We saw how strong his arm is. We saw how accurate his arm is. And we saw how athletic he was in escaping some of the pressure. And he rushed for 38 yards, and that was pretty impressive on its own. And the way he was rolling out to his left and to his right and making those off-balance throws still accurate, I mean, that's got to speak for your talent at some point. Within this whole realm of what happened, you got to find the fine middle ground. You can't declare that he's going to be the greatest ever because of one preseason game, but you can't just dismiss what he did saying it was against third stringers, it doesn't matter. Watch what happened. If you watch what happened, you will see the talent that he showed off, and you will see some of the improvements that need to be made, and you will continue to want to see him develop and grow and play against first string talent. But you saw raw ability right there, and what you saw was good.
Yeah. Again, he came in the first half. So it wasn't
Right.
all against third stringers. There was some first stringers in there as well. And he performed really well. But he was also playing with his third string on his team. He wasn't playing with the starting offensive line. And granted, if you go back and watch, they were in a shotgun a lot of times that he was out there. And they did a lot of rollouts. So where they were doing things to make him comfortable without changing the offense per se. That's great, is because all you really want to do is, if your ultimate goal is to not play him at all this season, you put him in spots that he's comfortable in. You give him that confidence by going out there and completing passes. He's known for his accuracy, and I think being out there for the first time and the speed of the game, you're going to be a little less accurate than you are, and you still saw really good accuracy. But you're going to watch is the next time he plays and the time after that, and even next year, is you're going to see that accuracy get better, because that is where he excels, is being accurate on these short
Right, that was the number one thing on his
And-
scouting report, basically.
Yeah, and people will be like, well, every quarterback's accurate. And well, you know what? You have to look at it this way, is if you hit a guy in a crossing pattern and he has to slow down or he has to turn back to get a ball behind him, sure, he makes the catch, and then he probably gets tackled right there. If you throw a really accurate pass on a crossing route or a post pattern, that's when you have a guy that runs all the way for a touchdown or gets a big play out of it, because they catch it right in stride, and they can just keep running. When you have to slow down, that's when
Think about
defenders
that
catch up
last
to guys.
drive, that drop by Victor Cruz. If he would have caught that, that would have been a good example of a guy who, was found right in the right spot, and he would have caught that for a first down and more.
Yeah, so I was really happy with Trubisky, and I'm glad that the first exposure that we have in the Bears uniform is a good one, because if he would have had a rough game, then you would have seen so much vitriol.
Oh my
thrown
goodness,
his
I
way.
couldn't even begin to imagine.
But instead, we saw, and I think it was compounded by the fact that Mike Lennon didn't have a good game at all. He had a really bad game, and people suddenly, their expectations went really low and then got raised up high. And I think there might be almost no more room on Mitch Trubisky bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, he was the number one trend that night. People were going crazy. People were already declaring they were ordering their Mitch Trubisky jerseys online. I mean, it was really quite something. But, I got to admit, I watched that full game. I usually don't watch full preseason games, especially the first one. But I watched that whole game. And I just kind of had a smile on my face when this was all happening. And I was like kind of clapping. And this sounds weird. In the most meaningless game ever, the preseason game 1, that last drive, I was like hardcore rooting intense for him because I wanted him to drive down the field and tie this thing.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch because normally you sit there and watch a preseason game. And I'm watching at the end just to see the training camp fodder play and see if we have any diamonds in the rough. But this time, I was on the edge of my seat going, we could win this. We could pull this one out. Like it was a game that mattered.
Well, what's funny? As I always say, when I watch a Bears game, all my rationality and all my, logical thoughts go out the window, and I just turn into a big Chicago meatball when I watch Bears games, even in a game like that.
Oh yeah, I do too. I turn into a big meatball, and I have to force myself to take some notes. And I record the games. So I'll go back and just rewatch some parts just to see, with non-meatball eyes, what I saw. But I get really in the heat of the moment, and the last couple of years it's been hard because you just your own
right,
emotions,
exactly.
anger,
You're watching crap, and I mean, look, last year, this is a perfect example of it. You remember that game against the Titans where Josh Bellamy dropped what would have been 2 game-winning touchdowns? I was sitting in my room watching it, and I knew the Bears were going nowhere, and I knew that a better draft pick was better, but dang it, in that moment, in that time, I was screaming at Bellamy, what the hell? Catch the ball, you stupid idiot! God. And then that game against the Packers, they almost came back and won. I was ready to explode if they won that game. And then after the game ended, it's well, yeah, it's probably good at this point that they lose and get a good draft pick, but dang it, in the moment, you want them to win.
Oh, absolutely. So, the score-wise, it didn't really matter because it's preseason. But the things we were looking for were how did players that played, how did they fare? And I mean, the quarterback play, Mike Glennon didn't look good. But fumble looked okay. But you know what? I actually saw a lot of things that I liked about him is he looked like he really was into playing. Especially on that one where the run play bounced outside and he put in a block.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
That was great to see, and you just saw the passion of playing football there, and that's really what I wanted to see from Mark Sanchez. I was worried that we would get this guy that was just a backup quarterback that was just there to collect a paycheck, and if called into duty, then we were really pressed between, all right, do we go with Trubisky because he's the better player, but risk, something happening to him and losing the progress, or do we go with butt fumble? And Mark Sanchez looked like a better player than I was expecting him to be. And, he still may be garbage, but, he's at least putting in
Can I ask you
effort
something? There. This may sound like a meatball take, but you ready for this?
Sure.
Do you think that there is a possibility, not conclusive, but possibility? We got to see what happens down the stretch. But do you think that there may be a possibility that Mark Sanchez might actually be more productive than Mike Glennon?
No, I'm still a believer in Mike Glennon. I'm much less excited about him, but I still think he's a better quarterback than Mark Sanchez. So,
Look,
we'll
and I'm
see how
not
that
making this
goes.
declaration off a preseason game. I'm trying to maybe mentally prepare myself for that possibility, if that's fair.
Oh, it's very fair. If the Bears have to rely on Mark Sanchez for a long period of time, this is going to
Of
be a
course.
lost season.
And I'm
It's
not
gonna be a good
saying
one.
that Mark Sanchez would suddenly be great. I'm just, it'd be like a not saying much type scenario. But we'll see, because I want Mike Glennon to do well. And going into the season, I thought my prediction was that he can do okay. I don't think he'll ever be spectacular, but I think if things go right, he might be able to do okay. But I got to see more from him, because what we've seen so far has not been very good.
Yeah, not at all. But what things we did see in this game that were good, offensive line, pretty good. I think they're going to be much better when Tom Compton is not moved to a position that he doesn't normally play at left guard. But I thought the offensive line played pretty darn well, and we're going to see some other guys in those spots, because apparently Kyle Long's not going to play in the preseason.
Yeah, and he's pretty unhappy about it too. You can tell.
So yeah, I mean, from what I hear is Cody Whitehair has gotten some reps at guard, which honestly, if you're looking for most versatility, and Hronis Grasu playing center is really the only position he can play, and if you move Cody Whitehair out to guard, then you've got your best offensive line out there until you have a healthy Kyle Long.
Exactly. And Kyle Long is someone that we absolutely need to have healthy now and in the future, because let's face it, for a number of years, considering the factors of who's best at their position, Kyle Long was their best player.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's the rah-rah heart and soul guy of this team. You need him to play well, and you need him to play. So I'm fine with him not playing this in this preseason. It gives you a better opportunity to see Hronis Grasu at center, and whether or not he's worthy of making this roster at being an offensive lineman that doesn't play any other positions. And so we'll see. But the offensive line played pretty well. Another position on the offense is running back. We saw Jordan Howard. He was the only one that really didn't perform, but you're not worried about that. He's going to be a guy that in the regular season,
You know what he brings. You know how good he is.
Tariq Cohen. Yeah, Tariq Cohen though.
Loved
really
watching
impressive.
him. Loved watching him weave and explode through defenses. That was fun to watch.
Brad Biggs was on the radio after the game, and he mentioned that he has a friend that's a professional scout that said, I don't know why people are excited about Tariq Cohen, because don't you remember Garrett Wolf? And that really frustrated me, because if this person truly is a professional scout and he can't tell the difference between Garrett Wolf and Tariq Cohen, then he must be a scout for the Browns, because he doesn't know what he's doing. Garrett Wolf was a guy we were excited about just because of the speed and things he did in college. But, I mean, when that guy went down with a whiffed arm tackle, just the air pressure from the arm tackle, he went down. He just didn't have that strong core to be able to run up the middle. Tariq Cohen can. We saw it. He ran up the middle. I mean, you probably don't want him to make a living running up the middle, but he can run up the middle.
Exactly. And you saw the way he was avoiding tackles and just he kind of dodging his way through. And a lot of people were high on the guy, and they said that his talent could be very underrated despite his size.
Yeah. So I'm very high on him, and I liked there was a couple times where he just ran out of bounds, is because it's not like he needed that one extra yard to get a first down or the touchdown. Is Why take huge contact from a big hit from a guy for 1 extra yard in the middle of the field when you already have the first down? Is, run out of bounds. Don't take that hit. Don't take that punishment. It's not necessary.
Right, exactly. And he's your number 2 back. It looks like he's going to be the number 2 back. Jordan Howard's the number 1 guy, so it's not like we're depending on Tariq Cohen to be our 1 running back. He's our number 2 guy.
Yeah, and you saw Benny Cunningham looked good, had a lot of opportunities, and you saw Kadeem Carey look good as a running back, but look even better as a special
Exactly,
teamer.
And that's why I think Jeremy Langford is the odd man out here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what really nailed it on the head for me is when you saw after the cheap shot by the guy from the Broncos on Kadeem Carey on a punt. Was it a punt return? Or
Yeah,
kick
something
return?
like that.
And he went out of the game, and he came in there for the next special teams unit, and he was back out there and played through it. And Jeremy Langford he suffered not even a high ankle sprain, a low ankle sprain, a regular ankle sprain, and a walkthrough in the first practice, and hasn't practiced since, and is not playing in games, and he's not a good special teamer. If Jeremy Langford makes this team, I'll be shocked at this point, unless he comes out there and he plays that next game and he looks like Dale Sayers.
Exactly. So at least, isn't it nice to see there be a little competition with depth in some areas for once? It's something the Bears haven't had in a long time.
Oh, absolutely. And Jeremy Langford is, I don't know what he's thinking, because if I'm him and I don't have a serious injury, I just have some pain, you know what, I'm going to my job is on the line. I'm out there. I'm playing. And if not for the Bears, I'm auditioning for somebody else. But nobody else is going to take him on if he didn't bother playing through, 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since he hurt his ankle, and it was not a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, it has been that long, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was first practice. So that's his choice. So can't really knock it. It's his choice. It's, if he doesn't make the roster because of it, then his choice. What else on the offense? Quarterbacks, Glennon looked terrible.
You know who I thought looked kind of good?
Mark Sanchez did.
I thought Deontay Thompson looked pretty good.
Yeah. I was not overall very high on the wide receivers in that game. Kevin White,
did he even get in there?
Name. Yeah, he was in there. He just didn't make.
Was he even targeted? I should say. Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't remember him being targeted at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And so, that's not good. And Cam Meredith, he got some targets and he got some catches, but he didn't get a lot of separation.
Didn't he have a big drop too?
None of the. Yeah, there was so many.
Yes,
drops
there
by
were.
the
Cruz on that
so
last drive. Oh man.
So, it was ugly. That was a team that I said, you know what, that unit, if they stay healthy, I think they'll be okay. But I was not expecting that many drop passes, and we're already starting to see injuries. Today, Marcus Wheaton broke a finger, so he's out. I'm getting a little worried now about this.
Yeah, I know, and Wheaton hurting his finger. I saw that, and I'm like, of course, because this is one area that doesn't have a lot of great depth. There are some solid players, but you're seeing catching problems already. And like I said, I think the best one was Deontay Thompson. At least he caught the ball and he had some nice catches. I'm not saying he was putting up Odell Beckham Jr. numbers, but at least he had some nice catches and some nice plays here or there. But the wide receiver core for the Bears is one of the more uninteresting aspects of the team compared to the future quarterback and the running backs and the lines. So I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and it's like watching him, I was hoping to see a few guys step up. Tanner Gentry looked exciting. I was happy to see him. He's a guy that I'm hoping can push from the bottom up and either make people above him better or win out a job, because I like what I saw from him. But you've got a lot of guys for not that many positions, and somebody's got to step up and start playing well in games. And you really are counting on Cameron Meredith to play big. And I was not happy about the lack of separation between some of those cornerbacks and him.
Yeah, no, I get that there. What was your opinion on the defense as a whole? Because I thought it did a pretty good job at times.
The starters, I liked what I saw from the starters.
Run defense was good.
Jonathan Bullard is clearly taken a big step forward. He's put on some size. Hasn't really lost that quickness, but has been able to get in there and not get bullied away by the offensive linemen. Mitch Unrein played better at times last year. He didn't play so well. Akeem Hicks looked good, and I mean the clear absolute. And there was a lot of good play on the defensive side from all positions, but the clear standout absolute stud.
Yes, sir.
Leonard
That
Floyd.
sack was beautiful, and I totally did not mean to say it that way.
The way he made that sack is just epitomize the difference between last year and this year. And he looked comfortable. He looked confident. Didn't look overmatched. And he just looked dominant as he was, with his power and his speed, looked so good. And, that there's going to be a lot more complicated defenses that Vic Fangio is going to run in the regular season, things that now are just very vanilla. So you're going to see exotic pressures coming that are going to help Leonard Floyd, but Leonard Floyd looked dominant on the one side, and you're just hoping that Pernell McPhee can come back soon to help provide pressure on that other side, because I like Willie Young, but and he got in there too, but to see somebody with the power that Pernell McPhee brings is going to good mix for the Bears.
So yeah, I mean that linebacking core is just another aspect of the Bears that I am just praying could stay semi-healthy throughout the year, because we saw last year we lost Trevathan, Pernell McPhee missed all that time, and you want Leonard Floyd healthy. And I said that I'm looking at a nice big breakout year from Leonard Floyd, and obviously he's got to stay healthy to do that. So health is such a big, important thing for the Bears, and that's just one thing that really needs to stay on the field.
Yeah, and another important factor is there's not a lot of depth for those outside linebackers. So
No, there really isn't.
If with Pernell McPhee out, they don't have much depth. If they lose another guys, they're probably going to have to go sign somebody. But the one overall thing I was chatting with the editor for Windy City Gridiron, and we both were like, the biggest thing we saw was the Bears need another pass rusher, another speed rusher, because if they can add that, that front seven is going to be tough.
Yeah, because look, you got some good talent right there already, but you add another one, looking even better.
Linebacking core looked good. Front seven just overall looked good. Adrian Amos, he again just disappeared. And I got to look this up, but I heard them say that he's never had a career interception in the NFL. And
Not surprised.
that's just like the epitome. He's just a guy out there. He's just average. He's not going to do anything good. He's probably not going to do anything really bad.
Right.
But you need better from there. And watching Eddie Jackson, who, we're still a long way away from declaring whether he's a good or bad NFL player. But I was not very high on him coming out of Alabama. But he's looked pretty good so far. I mean, he's showing some really good speed, and I would not be shocked if he ends up taking that starting safety job.
Well, that's what a lot of people are talking about, and God knows we need a good, consistent safety core. So I hope for the best here. And one thing I wanted to ask was on the defensive side. This goes back to the line. When are Bears fans truly going to appreciate Akeem Hicks for what he does? I just think he's very underappreciated for his skill set.
You're going to have to appreciate him when he gets a huge contract next.
Yeah, true.
I really like him. He sets the tone, and just the way his attitude he plays in, his professionalism, his just what he brings on the field. I really like him, and he was a guy who I thought would just be like, when he came over, I was happy, but I was like, oh, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be okay, but you're going to look to improve upon in the draft, and no, is hopefully he's the answer that side, and between Bullard and Jay Howard, that you're going to have somebody on the other side, and it's going to make it real tough to run up the center.
Would you say that so far Akeem Hicks has been Pace's best free agent signing?
Yes.
I think he's definitely made the most impact.
Yeah, Tracy Porter was a good one for what he, how much he signed for, and
Fourth quarter Porter.
Yeah, but Akeem Hicks has been really, really good.
Because wasn't he kind of like a last-minute call-in for the Pro Bowl last year?
I don't remember. I tune out the Pro Bowl. It is like the joke of All-Star games.
Oh, it is. I just, like I said, I don't care about the game. I just kind of like to see the honors of the Pro Bowl. Like, I see it as more of an award than anything.
Yeah, I have to look. But yeah, he's been really darn good, and that was a great pickup. And that's having him, seeing the maturity and physical maturity, and understanding the process and how the defensive scheme works with Leonard Floyd, is you're really shaping yourself up for a good linebacking core.
And
good front seven. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he's in that perfect spot right now where he's old enough to be a veteran, but still young enough to be, still versatile and very productive in the NFL. So we're getting him in his prime years.
Well, that's what Ryan Pace does. Is he doesn't want to pay for what you did in the past. He wants to pay for what he thinks you're going to do in the future.
With a good amount of experience. You could say the same thing about Danny Trevathan too. He came in, upper 20s guy, still has plenty left in the tank, still has a lot to give, some of his best to give, but he's got enough experience where he knows the ropes.
Yeah, and I'm excited for him to be healthy, because
me too.
Is last year we played with so many linebacking tandems. With John Timu, who is, I love him as a player, is his attitude and his football smarts, but if you could put him in a much more athletic person's body, I think you'd have a hell of a football player.
Sure.
Anderson, you just played with a lot of late draft pick, undrafted free agent, bottom feeder kind of guys, and you still played okay. When We saw what happened with when we had oh God, who's the other linebacker? The one they got from Indianapolis that was suspended.
Jarrell Freeman.
Jarrell Freeman. Jarrell Freeman played amazing last year.
Yeah.
And if you could put him with Danny Trevathan rather than Nick Kwiatkowski, a healthy Danny Trevathan, then by golly, you're going to have a pretty good inside linebacker core.
Yep, and that's something that we've been missing since Briggs and Urlacher left. Just the linebacking core, period, is having one. Because you remember that span from like 13 to 15. Remember that linebacking core? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
remember the best thing that Jonathan Bostic did was a big hit in a preseason game?
Oh, John Bostic.
Whatever happened to him?
They traded him to the Patriots.
That's right.
So,
hey, when the Bears give someone to the Patriots, they just go and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Cornerbacks, they were okay. They weren't bad. They weren't, they were okay. The starting safeties were, Demps played well, but the depth is the defensive backs. By the time we got to the third and fourth quarters, I was not really happy because you were watching Paxton Lynch just really pick apart guys, and there was a lot of guys that just didn't know their responsibilities, like that wide open touchdown pass.
Uncontested, not even close.
There was a blown coverage there, and that's the thing with the Vic Fangio defense is it's really aggressive, but if somebody blows a coverage, there is big opportunity for somebody to make a big play. Where some other defenses, there's a much better safety net, but with Vic Fangio's defense, you're not going to get that, and everybody's got to play their part and do their responsibility. And some of the defensive backs, I got to go back and watch and try to identify who was at fault in a lot of them, but those back end guys that at the safety position just were not looking good. Some of the ones that they drafted last year. So that bodes well for Eddie Jackson because he's not getting a lot of competition other than Adrian Amos.
Yeah, I think he's got a very good chance to win that job. Jackson.
He's gonna have to stay healthy, and he's gonna have to, show it in the games. But Vic Fangio is gonna play the best player that he has. He's not gonna play favorites or be like, well, this guy has more experience.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a Vic Fangio way. So
no, it's not. I just don't, like you said, I just don't see much competition there.
What else? Oh, the Bears brought in a new kicker to challenge Connor Barth.
And people are upset about it for some reason.
The guy was a second-round draft pick kicker. He's the most accurate college kicker of all time. But he struggled with Tampa Bay for whatever reason. I don't understand, because that is a position where you just project that right onto the NFL, because there's nothing else. It's not like, oh, the speed of the game. It is, you kick the ball. So if they can get him in the right headspace, change of scenery, whatever it is you're going to see a much better kicker than Connor Barth. And that is not a knock on Connor Barth. Is a guy who has he's got a better leg as far as distance he can kick, and he's much more accurate.
Yeah, so I think it's low risk, high reward move right there.
And it's like a no risk, high reward move. Worst thing that happens is, all right, they cut him. No harm,
exactly.
No foul.
Why are people upset about it? I don't get it.
Yeah. And then there's some other controversy people are, pissing and moaning about, is apparently Eddie Jackson made reference that Alabama camps are harder than Bears camp. And that's why I don't know why that's a big deal, is because there's no collective bargaining agreement in college. And in the NFL, there is. The NFL Players Union, when they negotiated, there's, there's certain things that you can't do anymore. You used to have double practices with pads every day, and now they don't do that. They have walkthroughs. There's only a certain amount of times that you can have guys in pads. They can only practice for a certain amount of time. The NFL dictates that. That's
the rules.
In college, they don't have as strict of rules.
Every program is different. They run their program differently. Whereas in the NFL, like you said, there's certain guidelines you have to follow.
So I can imagine Nick Saban is harder on his team and makes them work harder than the NFL mandates the most you can do for training camp. So
right.
I don't know why people are making this a thing. That's good. That's good that Eddie Jackson came from a really rigid program. It clearly has helped him. Exactly.
So, I'm not going to make much of it.
Yeah, so it's just silly. But, the first game's underway, or out of the way. You're starting to see some, you're going to see some shift in some of the depth charts. I would imagine there's going to be some shuffling at the wide receiver spot, possibly the offensive line, tight end, probably not. Defensive back, absolutely. So you're going to see some of the shuffling. And John Fox reminded everybody that at this point last year, Jordan Howard was 4th on the depth chart.
Yep. And look what happened then. And also he made it clear that the quarterback program and protocol and approach is not going to change despite the greatness of Mitch Trubisky in game 1, and that's kind of what I expected. I didn't expect there to be a sudden change, so no surprise there.
Even though he compared Mitch Trubisky to Tim Tebow.
Yeah, I'm going to pretend that never happened.
I tried to read. I tried to find the actual audio of it, but I couldn't find it. But I read the quote, and there's no context to it.
There really isn't.
I don't understand what he was trying to say. So, yeah.
Tim Tebow, yeah, I don't know.
And here's the thing with John Fox, is I bet if you go out to a bar and have a couple drinks, he's probably a blast. I mean, he's probably got all these stories in his own.
Oh, I bet,
character.
Yes.
But I don't want him coaching my team with young players and rebuilding players. I want like a Sean Payton. That's who I want.
Yeah, I mean, John Fox is a guy you want with a bunch of veteran experience, and this is a young team with little experience.
Yeah. So, but whatever. That's who we got, and he's going to call our number 2 overall pick that he was excited, after the game was saying, oh, this is why he was picked so high, he saw the great things he did, and then compare him to Tim Tebow. So, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just gonna not worry about that. I'm just, it's again let what Trubisky does speak for itself at the end of the day.
Yeah. So next on the docket is a week from yesterday. So this coming Saturday is going to be in Arizona against the Cardinals, and I think you're going to see. You're going to see more of Mike Lennon because I think they need to get him some success in a game, even if it's a preseason
especially if
game.
He's your planned starting quarterback.
What I'm curious about is how much they're going to play everybody, because Connor Shaw is back in practice. He missed a week because he had that screw removed from when he had the broken leg last year. He's sitting, far down in that 4th position, but I wonder if they're going to give him enough time to see if he's worthy of putting on a practice squad position, or if they're just going to cut ties with him. How much time are they going to give to Mark Sanchez? How much time are they going to give to Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, there's going to be much more time devoted to Glennon this time around than there was before, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and everyone's going to want to see Mitch Trubisky over everyone right now, but yeah, well, this will be this will be a game where I'm watching Mike Glennon very closely, because if he's going to be playing a lot more and he is still our planned starting quarterback, this is a guy I'm going to be watching very, very closely. We knew in the first game that Glennon was not going to play very much, and we knew Trubisky was going to get the second half, I should say. So, this is going to be something to really focus on Glenn in this coming game, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going to be looking for the wide receivers to have a big bounce back game. I want to see who's going to separate themselves, because at this time last year, as Cam Meredith showed his worth, is somebody else going to step up? I need to see guys make those catches when the ball hits them in the hands. I need to see a little bit of separation, a little more physicality. So I'm looking for the wide receivers to take a big next step.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like I said, the only thing I liked seeing was a few nice catches by Deontay Thompson. That's about it.
And then I want to see more from the safety position. I want to see the competition there. Quentin Demps clearly is entrenched at one starting spot, and I want to see more from Eddie Jackson, and hopefully they can give him more playing time, because I want to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are ready to see what he can do, and this will be a big game for him.
Yeah, so I don't really have much else to say.
No, that was a really good show.
Alex?
I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys all so much for listening. Please make sure you subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Share with your friends. If you guys want to get in touch, Twitter at Swerski Sports, at ShyFanPat1, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. And thanks for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.